Yep, that's what we're looking at. So does that make sense to everyone what it's saying?
I can't see anything.
There you go. You gotta get up, guys. This is hands-on day.
Occlude circuit outlet. Oh, so it's just practice the testing. Occlude it.
Mm-hmm.
And then
There you go.
so occlude.
What's it saying?
Reconnect the patient circuit to the mass or
And it also tells you up here, right? Passed. So your exhalation ports work. It's safe to put on a patient. And now we can hook it up to our test line over here. And then you're just going to start ventilation. And now it's going to go with your settings. Okay, so let's pause right there. So questions on the pre-use check. So what are the two things that we're checking?
The mask port and the
That's it. Mask and port.
mask port.
Yeah,
Okay.
mask and port. So mask and port, okay? Once you get those passed, your machine's good to go, okay? Now we connect it to a patient and we can start our initial ventilation support. So what are your initial settings? And what mode did we talk about last time that you typically, someone coming in the ED, you're gonna start with?
6/12.
Okay, close.
Or
Bigger
12
number's
over-
always on top.
12/6. Sorry.
What about mode?
Half asleep.
Mode. And if you don't remember the mode, on your skills sheet, they tell you on one of those squares that you have to differentiate between four that we talked about last time. So in your notes, you should have it too.
I wasn't here last time.
No.
Were you not here last time?
I wasn't here last time.
Yeah.
What was them?
Snap pictures of their pages, just so you have it.
Yeah.
Good job for remembering 12/6. Okay, modes? You guys have your notes from last time?
Do you have yours, Diana? They don't have theirs. Oh, okay.
CPAP, ST mode, PVC eval.
There you go. So those are the four modes. Now, which one, do you have in there anywhere, which ones we would start with?
PCV.
That's for if they need to go on a ventilator, that would be the ventilator mode.
Oh,
So typically the patient, what do they typically look like when they come on, or when they come in the ED and they need a BiPAP? What do you think they might look like?
They look distressed.
Distressed, but they're breathing still, right? And so we're gonna put them in ST. Do you remember what the S and the T stand for?
Spontaneous.
There you go. And then timed. Okay, so spontaneous timed. And then we do the settings 12/6. Okay. Rate, what did we say about rate?
That's the respiratory rate.
And it's and
Or frequency, yeah.
for real life patients, it's more of a backup rate. Okay, we have it and we talk about it right now in lab because we have it hooked up to a test line. Okay, so we need to show you how it's working, right? In real life, the patient's probably going to be breathing way over this, and you want them to do that, okay? Because this device just gives them extra support when they breathe, okay? Okay, so 12/6. You guys have questions, or do you guys remember rise time?
It's how fast it goes. The,
Gets to the
to the
end.
full exhalation.
Yeah.
So from EPAP, how fast it goes from EPAP to IPAP, okay?
And that's the rise time, right?
Yeah, that's rise time. The other button, it's not on your on this skills sheet that you guys are looking at, I don't think yet, but you'll get a question on it. It's this button. Do you guys remember what this one is?
the what?
The off? Where it says off?
Yeah, where it says off.
Well, no, that's the time one.
Yeah, it is the time one. So this one's ramp. You guys remember what ramp is?
Like how long it gives them to complete a cycle.
So close. So if we do, so right now it's set to initial settings, 12/6, but it's gonna start at 8/5. And it's gonna go to 12/6 right now over 15 minutes.
Okay.
So basically it's gonna slowly rise the pressure until it hits your set pressure that you guys put in. And I like to teach it, think if you had to fall asleep with a BiPAP. I feel like that's just the easiest way to remember.
To ease them
To
into
ease them
a
into it.
REM sleep. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And sometimes, right, people have pressures like 18 over something. And so like, that's a lot of pressure to try to fall asleep if it's just blasting in your face. So the idea is start with lower and then automatically it's gonna increase to what you want it to be over a certain amount of time. So that's ramp. Make sure you have some notes or you just understand it because it's not on that skills sheet online, but it's gonna be on the one that you guys actually get tested.
Can you repeat what round?
Go for it.
So, he gave an example as if like you're trying to sleep with the BiPAP. You're not gonna do 12/6 right away because you're not gonna be able to sleep. It's just an automatic thing. So what it does is it slowly increases within time in order to get to 12/6.
I see.
And if you, again, sometimes it helps to get up, if like maybe you hear it once but it doesn't make sense, use the machine to help visually see what's going on. So like you can see the pressures right here. And then if you go this, right, it stretches out the length of time that it's
45
gonna take
minutes.
to go up.
So that's saying it'll take 45 minutes in order for it to get to 12/6.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so that's why sometimes if you get up here and you actually touch the machine like I'm asking you guys to, right, it'll make things click a little easier. Okay.
So if we're trying to, if the patient is going to sleep with it at 50 and then increase to 45 or?
Well, so this is like, there's no, I can't say, yes, every patient do that, right? Because some patients can maybe tolerate the high pressure and just go to sleep right away, but no, they don't need that. Other patients, and this is where you guys are gonna have to write patient assessment, talk to your patient. If you know they're complaining, taking off the mask all the time, like they're probably a good candidate for taking a long time to get up to the high pressure, because you know that they're kind of, irritable already with it. And I just teach sleep, I teach it for sleep because I think it's easier to make sense to them, but say someone was in the ER and they were just scared of the BiPAP, right, or something like that. You could try to use the ramp feature to kind of ease them into it as well. But the trade-off, right, is typically if in the ER, they need the support, right, they need it right away. So if you maybe did like a 5-minute, maybe that's okay, but you don't want to definitely do 45 minutes just to get them what they actually need at that moment. Okay, so.
And you said the rise time was how long it takes for the inspiratory, expiratory, or how long it takes to get to the inspiratories?
Well, I feel like this is a point where some students are going to start talking about like I time and E time, and that's not what we're talking about.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, no,
Okay, so
So EPAP, so think of pressures. We're talking about just, BiPAP is 2 pressures. And so it's gonna be the time it goes from the low pressure to the high pressure.
Okay.
What you have to remember for BiPAP is like ST mode, don't forget the spontaneous, right? So if someone is spontaneously breathing, who sets the I time and the E time?
They do.
Yeah, right. So that's why think of the rate, the I time. That's all going to be backup. So if they stop breathing, right,
It's gonna push
gonna
that
try to
through.
do it.
Okay.
Now, how well that works, it probably doesn't work very well, right? Just trying to shove that, but it'll try. Okay, so I think we covered every button on ST mode. You always have FiO2 as well, right? So if it's an oxygenation issue and you're not at 60%, try going up on FiO2 and see if it helps. Okay, but what happens after 60%?
It's a danger.
Danger, right? We know, and this is for remember for your boards, right? They know that you realize that, right? And so now if you ever choose anything higher than 60 and there's a better option, they're going to basically say like, well, why are you choosing to hurt your patient? Right? Maybe you're not ready to be the RT yet because that thing didn't click. So up to 60%, no problem. Once you hit 60%, what's the other setting you want to kind of think about changing?
Pressure.
One of the pressures, right? We only got 2. So which one? Which one deals with oxygenation?
Oh,
No, I want to say the expiratory.
BiPAP.
Expiratory.
BiPAP.
It's because where you're blowing off the carbon, right?
Well,
Because that's when the exchange is happening, because you're blowing it out.
I think, no.
No.
Because the way that I would want you to think about it is, that's the pressure, right? If you think of EPAP, we're at EPAP right now. Now we went to IPAP. Now it's back at EPAP. Just listen to it first. Sometimes this helps you make sense of things. IPAP, back to EPAP.
So it's already reached its full inhale, and then it's going down.
EPAP, right? So this EPAP is baseline pressure.
It's oxygenation.
It always stays in the patient, right? You guys are learning about vents right now. It's going to be like the same idea that PEEP is, right? PEEP is a baseline pressure at the end of exhalation, right? It never gets lower than that pressure. And so if we keep the lungs open with this baseline pressure, you have better oxygenation. Right? What happens if we lose all the pressure in the alveoli?
They collapse.
There you go, right? So just, and if they collapse, how is gas exchange?
There's none.
Crappy, right? Or none. And so think of like that baseline pressure is what keeps those alveoli open, okay? So think gas exchange for PEEP. We said EPAP. In your notes somewhere you have CPAP on there as well. All of that's typically used to help affect oxygenation, okay? IPAP is kind of more what you were describing, Natalie, because the IPAP is what's going to help the patient take a deeper breath, and then when they exhale, they're going to exhale more volume. So that's how they, so ventilation is more for IPAP, okay? Okay, so for your, sorry, that's what I was in the middle of trying to do. I was trying to pull up the skills check myself. So basically, you guys, after you talk about, do the mask, like size the mask, do your pre-use settings, talk about the different modes. You guys are going to be expected to place the patient on the BiPAP. Okay, so basically everything Diana did. Now, you want to, so here, I'll walk you through this right now, Diana. Well, some of it's already set. If I told you put your patient on 12/6, 40%, a rate of 8, could you do that?
You need to set it.
40%? FiO2?
That sounds right, at the same time, I don't. No.
So we got, so rise time, it says 0.2 on the skills check. It's supposed to be 2. Okay, so I think the real one is fixed already for you guys. So if you had to put a rise time of 2, Diana, could you do that? Okay, and then I think that's it. All right, so there's all your initial settings that you'd have to be able to place in. Essentially what happens is the person who goes right before you messes it all up for you. So they change everything, put it in a different mode, all that jazz, and then you have to come in, do your whole setup, and then put in the right settings. Okay. Next on here. So the next thing is adjust alarms. So
Alarm setting.
you want to try this one? So adjust your alarm. Okay, so now we got, let's just go from left to right. So you're gonna have high and low rate, okay? And so what is your patient, well, this one's kind of messed up right now, but what's a normal respiratory rate range?
22 to 26. No, it's 12 to. My brain's not working.
It's kind of working. Respiratory rate.
Oh, 18 to 20.
No, it's 12 to 20. I was 12 to 2. I couldn't
12
think of
to
the
20,
second number.
so yeah, what I want you guys to remember, okay?
Okay.
Now, for this, what we were talking about, right, is that the patient's spontaneously breathing, and what did we say about the rate and the I time? What should it be used as?
The rate should be used for the, I didn't write that right.
Should be a backup.
At backup, to what their expected cycle should be.
Well, for this initial part, think, right, BiPAP ST mode, the patient's breathing, okay? So we're gonna just set the low rate low, okay? So if I have you set it at 8, right, like on your skill sheet, you wanna set it maybe 6.
Oh,
okay?
Oh, just in case if they start breathing lower than that, the machine's gonna kick in
Yeah.
and help them out.
Yep. And
And stay with the high.
yeah.
Gotcha. So then they know they're within that range.
Yep. And high rate is going to vary, okay? We say 12 to 20, but if your patient comes in and they're breathing 25, we don't want to set it at 20 because it's never going to stop alarming, right? So if they're breathing at 25 right now, I would put it a little bit higher. So maybe 30, okay? So why don't you set your high rate at 30? Okay, now essentially this is what's gonna happen when you do your skills check, right? Because you're putting in some settings, your alarms are gonna be all jacked up, and you're gonna have a whole list of things that you wanna try to get rid of, okay? So, tidal volume, we have a high and a low tidal volume. So, what do you guys know about that? Because you guys are learning stuff right now for the vent, right? With tidal volume?
so
Well, tidal volume
it
goes
depends
by
on
height.
how high, if they're male or female and their height.
Okay, so I didn't plan this to go together, but let's just go with it.
Okay.
So there's your patient's information.
Okay.
And I think one of the questions on the right side is tidal volume range, minimum ventilation. So can you guys figure that out?
Yeah.
And then if you get stuck, I can help you guys. Yeah. So basically right now, since we're talking about tidal volume, you need to know ideal body weight, right? And then you need to know your tidal volume range. So that's the two things I want you guys to try to work on.
Are you asking us to do the
What we were doing yesterday.
ESD?
Uh-huh. So,
So what is, well, let's just talk about the patient for a second. So what are some things that stand out or that you should be keeping an eye on just on the information on the left side?
High pH.
pH?
okay.
So you have an ABG on there. What is your ABG showing you, I guess? If you guys want to start there.
High bicarbonate,
pH, CO2 is low.
low pH.
HCO3 is normal.
No, I thought normal was 22. For bicarbonate? Normal's 20.
22 to 26.
Yeah, it's 22 to 26.
Oh, that's normal, 22. Oh, I
Yeah.
thought it was-
Okay, let's see if this makes it easier.
Okay.
Really high.
Yeah, that's not good. Low 2. Those acute. Oh, yeah, acute circumstances.
That's okay though, because that's how you can confirm what you're thinking. You're like, yeah, it is. Because it is an acute issue, right? How do we know that?
Because the bicarbonate is normal, but the pH is abnormal.
Mm-hmm.
And the
so what,
CO2 is
what?
normal.
Is CO2 normal?
Yeah, what's the?
CO3 is low.
Whoa. So what is, how does that happen? What does your patient have to be doing for CO2 to be low?
Not breathing as fast.
Yeah, hyperventilate.
If you're not breathing as fast, are you blowing out CO2? Or is it?
Oh, no, if you're not breathing as fast, you're not blowing out as much.
So what's this patient doing?
So he's hyperventilating.
All right.
Yeah, he's holding it, like keeping it.
No, your
'Cause
patient
there's
is
no-
hyperventilating right now. Mhm. They're not retaining, because if they're retaining CO2,
Then it'd be
CO2
too
would be
high.
high.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So right now your patient is hyperventilating. And it makes sense because they have shortness of breath, right? So they're
And
puffing and
they're
puffing right now. Okay.
His alkaline.
So we have an acute respiratory alkalosis. What about oxygen assessment? Is there anything you can assess oxygenation on this?
It's low.
It's low, right? What's it at?
50 right now.
Yep. Okay, so now you've broken down the blood gas. So what are your two problems? What are your problems on the blood gas?
Oxygenation.
That's basically it, to be
Yeah.
honest. Just oxygenation right now. We have no pulmonary history, okay? You have a male. You have a BMI that says 35. Do you guys know what that is?
So,
Do you know what's good or bad normal? Just it's kind of a distractor because we don't really focus on it too much, but just 35 is high, okay? Let's just say 35 is really high, okay?
What's the range?
Weight is 350 pounds.
What's the range?
Range of BMI. She's
What
saying.
do
I think it's like 20 to 30 is like obese. 35 and more is like really obese. Normal, I don't know what normal is, to be honest with you. Just know that that's high. It's a distractor.
Okay, so this person's overweight.
Because that's basically why I added it. That's all I want you to see. You're not going to use BMI in any of your equations, but you will use the weight, right? Or you'll look at the weight to also kind of gauge things, right? And you have a height, right? So you have a height. What else do you?
350 pounds. And a BMI.
Oh wait, so
35,
we
meaning
could use the
this guy
BMI
would
for
die.
question 4.
Yeah, definitely.
That would be possibly sleep apnea.
Well, yeah, there's a lot. So, but right now, what I want you guys to do is figure out basically number 2 and 3, because that's also what you guys are learning in your big class.
Okay, so 81.
BT equals.
So you guys have to remember your ideal body weight calculation.
I got 81.
You got it ready?
81.
You already did that yesterday?
So does everyone have their equation?
I mean that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Divided
Oh.
by 2.2.
But we can use the other one that's in the one I remember a little bit better, the one from Greens.
I like the greens one better. Just because.
I already memorized this. I'm not.
No, that's
even
fine.
looking
Yeah.
at it.
Do you understand it though?
Yeah.
Because I like greens because it puts you in kilograms already.
Oh.
Right? That one. Is,
That one you do it after. You do it
yeah,
after
you still have to do some division and stuff to get it into kilograms. So I just think it's one less step. So that's why I usually teach the other one. But either one is fine.
It's too much.
Yeah. Me and Miss Day were just talking about it because you're gonna get different numbers, you know, but it's gonna still kind of be in the same ballpark, and that's respiratory.
What did you get from Taliban?
I didn't know what to times it. I know we're supposed to get this and times it by a number, but I don't even know what.
Well, let's just get down to everyone get ideal body weight down, and then we'll pause.